Hello, my name is Jen, and I'm the meteorite woman because a meteorite hit my house in 2018, and it has been teaching me about how the world really works ever since. I started my channel to share what I've learned from my meteorite teacher. The entire premise of my channel is that natural disasters on Earth are by and large impact events. In other words, they are caused by material from space colliding with Earth and its atmosphere. And it sounds a little crazy. Impact denial is a big problem with our species, probably because of all the trauma of impacts. Science, in particular, has been very, very slow to accept the reality of impacts on Earth. And I'm not going to talk about my whole theory today. I just want to bring some understanding to what happened in Maui in the hopes that we never have to repeat this event, that no one ever has to live through something like this again. Unfortunately, I do think there will be more events like this. But eventually, I hope for mankind to hear this message that I am providing so that we can understand these events better, so that we can predict and prevent them and harness the energy that they bring to our planet, because we have energy needs. And boy, I can't think of a more sustainable way to meet them than by somehow capturing the energy that is deposited into Earth through impact events. Now, back to the photos I used during the moment of silence. I'm comparing a natural disaster to a man-made disaster, obviously. However, when scientists talk about like the Chelyabinsk impact in Russia in 2013, for example, they equate it to a certain number of kilotons of TNT, right? So that's what these photos are doing. They're drawing a direct comparison between the energy released in an atomic bomb and the energy that was released in Maui a few weeks ago. To call it a fire or even a wildfire is such an understatement, because it really does not indicate the level of destruction. I put them in black and white to make them more visually compatible so that people would be able to see right off that we are looking at a destruction on a comparable level. Like here, like in this photograph of Nagasaki, these pictures in Kula show that there are not even any walls left. And again, here we have another house that was, if you look at it, it slid. The whole house slid and appears to have like kind of melted down the side. One thing I noticed earlier as I was examining this picture that I hadn't seen in the other times that I had worked with this photograph. By the way, this was taken, it was a still shot I grabbed from the aerial footage provided by the governor's office. There is a body in this photograph. I am fairly certain. It's hard to pick out, but I believe this is the person's head. This is their torso, and these are their legs. So I think this here is a person. And, you know, I'm not trying to be gory or, you know, dramatic or anything. I'm just, these are all important clues about what happened. So that tells you that the fire was so hot that it melted the walls right off the house, but it did not consume the tissues of the person who was inside the home at the time. The outline of it started here. And it just looks like it slid away from itself. Like these stairs even look like they got stretched like taffy. These stairs appear to have been part of these stairs. So we've got actual deformation of the ground. And I don't think, you know, just a regular fire could do that. I could be wrong. I'm no expert. And it should go without saying that my deepest sympathies and regrets and apologies to whomever this person is in this photograph and to their loved ones, because somebody out there will see this video and will know who that is. I chose this one because it almost looks like there's snow on the ground, and you have the same situation here. It looks like a city covered in snow. Just no buildings left except for a few, you know, larger structures. The whole area of Lahaina was impacted by ionized, what I think was ionized gases. So, you know, experts like to claim that asteroids and comets and all kinds of, you know, all the debris from outer space, oh, it all gets vaporized. And what doesn't get vaporized just lands somewhere in the ocean where it doesn't matter, or uninhabited lands. But that's not true. How could that be true, especially with people populating more and more regions of the planet? Now, one of the first things that I noticed as I was looking through the material provided by the governor's website, I checked out this security camera footage. Once I caught wind of people running from their cars in Hawaii and running into the ocean to escape the flames, I knew that I needed to take a closer look at this event. And what I found just blew my mind. I mean, just for a few days, I was almost like hopelessly obsessed with just, there's so much good evidence that this was an impact event that I almost didn't even know where to start this video. So I began here. So here it is in an article from the Washington Post from a few weeks ago. That's the video. But they also go on to talk about this company, they monitor the electric grid, and apparently 10 of their sensors right in that area where where this camera was filming, they recorded a significant incident in the electric grid right at that same moment where this is seen. I'm going to play this at 25% playback speed. Notice how everything's lit up right now, and then things go dark. And then we get a brightening again. Right before, you see there were two little flashes. Then this explosion, then it flips the camera around. Notice that the explosion is green. Don't worry, we'll watch it again. Just going through this hole. And then it's a few minutes later, but you can see the fire is well established. All right, now I've slowed this down to 10% of its original speed. Notice how it gets darker. So I think when the video opens, there's a fireball in the sky overhead. It's lighting up the background there. And then it fades, and then it brightens back up again. Right before. Still goes so fast. Watch back here first. Light goes down, and watch it come back up, and then watch back here. It comes back up. Now watch. 2 sparks. Oh, several. And then boom. Green light. Green fire. And then the camera gets knocked off its hinge. It's knocked off its axis. So I believe this video shows an impact happening. And for comparison, I dug this video out from a newscast that was on August 2nd. So this was just like a week before the Maui incident. This was over central United States. This was another fireball. Now, I don't want you to pay attention to the fireball, but I want you to pay closer attention to what's going on around the cars than looking at that. Notice flare of light, then it goes down, then it flares up again. So that's what meteorites do. They flicker. They flicker on the way down. Next, I came to the aerial footage of Olinda, and I wanted to bring your attention right away to, this was one of the first things that jumped out at me. Look at these trees. They're all by these power lines, and they've all been burned. The ground underneath is blackened, scorched, and notice it doesn't even go further out into the grasses. It's just underneath where the power lines go. Then this shot. Notice this is highly landscaped property. I imagine that there is some kind of electric lighting installed through here. All of this is charred. And notice where it's the blackest is right here around what looks like an electric box. And then, what happened there? More ground deformation here. This wasn't just a fire. Here's a good shot. Here's a bunch of cables, electric cables from where it goes through it over here. Just Shredded. This is just unbelievable destruction. Then I checked out Google Earth, and just to make sure we're all on the same page about the geography, Lahaina is the westernmost town on Maui. The rest of the fires were more centrally located. However, the worst of it was here at Lahaina. Now, I also added some overlays. This is a map of the fires that one of the news media companies put out. That's a map of coverage from Hawaiian Electric. Interestingly, notice that the fires seem to have happened like in these areas that are like between coverage areas. I'm not sure what that means. Maybe this is where they have the high voltage power lines carrying power from here to here and from here to here and from here to here. That would really make the most sense. Now we're going to start in Lahaina. So, fun fact about me, my home is solar powered and it is not tied into the electric grid at all, which means I don't have an electric bill. And let me tell you, it's really nice. So, being a fan of solar power, it's probably why it stood out to me that many of the houses that I saw still standing in the aerial footage from the governor's website had solar panels. I just kind of filed it mentally. I didn't think it was any significance. I just noticed it because, like when you buy a new car, you start seeing that car everywhere. When you have a baby or when you're pregnant, you see babies everywhere all of a sudden. It was like that. I just noticed it because I have solar panels too. I didn't think there was much significance to that detail. And then I started looking on Google Earth. And the first place I looked was Lahaina. And you're looking at this. And the devastation in Lahaina was the devastation was bad everywhere, but it wasn't every single house everywhere else like it was in Lahaina. Every single one of them is just a pile of rubble. There's nothing left. You don't see furniture. You don't see nothing. It's rubble. But occasionally, you see a roof that did make it. Oh, look, they have solar panels too. And I looked in another place, and that house that was still standing had solar panels too. And before long, I noticed that every single house left standing in Lahaina is solar powered. And that every single house that was tied into the electric grid was vaporized, partially liquefied, mostly vaporized. That is what happened. It was the power lines, but not how everyone's thinking. They didn't blow into a tree. This wasn't some spark that spread with high winds. No. These houses were electrocuted. with so much power that they melted and vaporized, and the people inside them didn't make it out. I have a feeling that the only survivors from Lahaina were people who weren't home when it happened. And I don't think that the powers that be had any hand in this. I don't think there was any. I don't think this was anyone's intention to have happen. I believe it was an accident. But I do understand why the people of Maui would totally feel betrayed and like they were cheated or picked on. I totally get that. It's like their feelings are telling them that something, that they're not being told the whole story, and that something is wrong with this picture. And so yes, that would leave anyone with a horrible taste in their mouth and a lot of bitterness and anger. But I do believe it's misdirected. I think that these people, I don't think that first responders had a clue what was going on. I don't think anyone knew. So I'm going to start at the where the devastation mostly begins, at the southern end of the coast of Lahaina. And right away, we encounter houses that did survive. They're solar powered. It's a solar community. Okay. So why didn't these houses make it? And that bothered me for a while. It took me a little while to figure this stuff out, guys. The houses that didn't make it in the subdivision were all planted right near big. Were all planted. We're all right next to large, mature, planted trees. This drove me nuts. Those are trees. That house is really close to them, but it made it. And I think that's because these weren't mature trees. The roots probably weren't touching the foundation of the home. Trees are excellent conductors of electricity. In fact, they have electricity in them already, which is probably why they get hit so often by lightning. I came down here at street level to just see where the power lines were. All the way across the street. I don't pretend to understand how electricity works, but by having trees that were somewhat near power lines, I don't know how the power lines have electrified the trees across the street. I don't understand that myself. If anybody out there, like an electrician or somebody, might be able to speak to this, I would be really, really interested to hear. Please leave a comment below, because I would really love to understand this better myself. So, okay, let's just keep going with this footage. Here, this little orange house, this house with the orange roof, that's the house that made it to the cover of several newspapers a few weeks back. And those people had, in the article about their house, they said that they attributed it, because the article claimed to be they were like the only house left standing in Lahaina, which isn't true. There are still several houses left standing in Lahaina. There's a whole subdivision left standing, but this particular house also had solar panels. That didn't mention it in the article, because who would think that having solar panels would protect you from your house burning down in a wildfire? And so nobody made that connection. So those people didn't even mention it in the article. Or maybe they told the journalist, and maybe the journalist isn't, maybe the news media is aware of this detail and they're keeping it out of the press because they don't want people to know. That's also a possibility. We'll talk more about the press in a few minutes. But they did mention that they moved a tree away from the house. And yeah, I believe that saved their house. Even this large building here that looks like a hotel, you clearly see the solar panels on top. Here at the marina, this little shop, you don't see any solar panels on top. I thought, oh, the exception to the rule. There it is. Wrong. You see down here? That's where the solar panels are. And that's them. So they're wired up the dock to the little shop with the orange roof. And that's why it's still standing and nothing else is. Nothing else around it is. These buildings were solar powered, but they were too close to the trees. It's just, I've never seen anything like this. Finally, you get here, and this is a solar subdivision. And like I said, these other towns are like more in between service areas for Hawaii Electric than actually. So I don't know if any of the houses in these towns are tied into the electric grid. If anybody knows that about these areas, please comment below. It's not even just for my own curiosity. Like, we need to understand what happened here. This is a risk to every human alive on Earth who has electricity running through their home. And that's frightening. Yeah, you can see where the electric lines came through here. Yep, that's why this whole forest burned down, because the power lines went through it. And all of those roots, yeah, that's how trees, trees do that. They communicate with one another through their roots. They share nutrients and things like that. So it's like a brain underneath the soil. And this was like, a major seizure. No, that's a bad. Yeah, it's kind of a good analogy, because a seizure is like an electrical occurrence in the brain. It almost looked like they were turned to glass. It almost looks like a shiny crust on top. I do understand why power companies would want to run their lines through the woods out of sight, especially in a place like Hawaii where, people pay a lot of money for their views and nobody wants it messed up with power lines because they're friggin' ugly. I would love to know if Hawaii has any buried power lines, because that may have come into play. We need to know this stuff. I have mentioned in other videos of mine. I'm actually, I still need to make a tornado video, but it's very clear that tornadoes are attracted to high voltage power lines. Lightning is, and I'm adding a clip here of my Chelyabinsk video talking about power lines. Also, notice how close this all happens to power lines, high voltage power lines. And it seems to follow the line of them. It seems to follow these wires, like the impact itself seems to be traveling along that electric plane. I'm not sure what that means. Just in case you're not convinced that the power lines in and around your house are a danger to you, I present YouTube clips for your viewing pleasure.
Inside his house and saw this. A fireball blazing across power lines just overhead, fueled by an electrical surge, strengthening and exploding.
What we saw was this fireball barreling down the power lines and emanating an extreme amount of heat that essentially forced us back inside because it was so hot.
Look again as the surge zips.
I find that very interesting. That that the amount of heat from something way overhead like that would force them back inside because it was so hot. Now, thank God that heat didn't enter their homes, as I do believe it did in Maui. That's a very unpleasant thought, isn't it?
Dangerously close. Griffiths consumed with worry about his 2 children sleeping inside.
I thought the house was going to explode.
There's been no official explanation of what triggered the fireball, but some experts speculate lightning started it and that basic safety mechanisms meant to shut it down failed. Susan Solney, ABC News, New York.
See, this is what I hate about the news, too. You never get to hear the follow-up. Like, I'm sure there was no story about the investigation and what they found. Of course not. They don't want us to know what they found out. But this is not an isolated incident. Now look at that. Look at that. You see the gas? That's gas coming out of that. It's overcast. I'm going to do a full analysis of these in a different video, because when you really slow this footage down, it's incredible. But yeah, just to show you this happens.
Christopher Fitzmaurice was working in the area and went outside to see what was happening. Not believing what he saw, he got his phone and pressed record. Others also caught the chaos on camera, which caused bushes to catch fire and traffic lights to fall off their stands. It also left about 10,000 customers without power for hours.
It's louder as it's coming. It's really scary.
Oh my God.
Storm. Their neighbor Sebastian Nolte captured that on video.
Fire going down our line.
The neighbors lost power after Friday's fireball, but they got it back Saturday at 3 p.m. Then, around 6 p.m., Brad, his wife, and their baby saw it happen again. How many times did that happen?
Like 3 times, I think.
The neighbors lost their power again. You can hear Brad's baby scared in the background.
The fireball was like more powerful, so whatever they did just made the fireball angrier.
In a press conference Sunday morning, DTE Electric President Trevor Lauer said severe weather events back-to-back seem to be the new normal, and we just need to adjust.
So what I'm saying is that comets leave pieces of material in their wake. These are magnetically attracted to Earth. They become ionized as they pass through the ionosphere, and they interact electromagnetically with our planet. And they can manifest in various disasters at the surface. And I happened to do just out of curiosity's sake, a search for green meteor. But that comet, if you recall, had not been by in like 50,000 years. Apparently, now we have another one coming by. I just found out about this today. Comet Nishimura. I have never heard of before today. It must have just been recently discovered. And it's going to be visible in the night sky is like within the next couple of weeks. So this thing is coming close already. And just take a look. Now, something I've said in other videos too is that these things do not travel by themselves. First of all, comets are the cockroaches of the solar system. They run around everywhere and they leave a trail of crap behind them, which I call comet caca. And they also, that's a very scientific term, by the way. They also, and so these little pieces of them that they leave all over, then the Earth runs into those dust clouds and things. We experience them as meteor showers, but we also experience them as natural disasters. The ones that have been, the ones that seem to be kind of stationary in orbit, the ones that we run into every year don't seem to really cause that many issues on Earth. It's when we have a new kid in town who's been dropping, junk everywhere, those seem to be more disaster causing. Our ancestors were not stupid. We wouldn't be here if they were, because they survived with nothing but rocks. Think about that. So apparently green meteors are not all that common, but they have been this year. We've got 3 days ago. We got that big one coming. We have the big comet. We have this April 14th. No, that was a laser show. But 1 month ago over Louisiana. In May over Australia. Yeah, China in June. And it came by in February. It was the first time in 50,000 years. And now we have this other one coming. And these videos are capturing a lot of another green fireball 2 weeks ago across Florida. And apparently these were such rare events. There's a Wikipedia article. Green fireballs are a type of UFO that has been reported since the early 1950s. Pretty much every UFO sighting is a comet, is a piece of a comet, or it's an impact. And these things, they interact electromagnetically with our magnetosphere, so they can do all kinds of crazy things. On December 8th, another aerial observation of a green fireball was reported by 2 pilots. Letter to the Air Force. Observed objects were atypical of meteors. The director of Army Intelligence wrote that the green fireballs may be the result of radiological warfare experiments by a foreign power, and that they are such great importance, especially as they are occurring in the vicinity of sensitive installations, that a scientific board should study the situation. So they were really freaked out about these things. Doesn't say why they thought they were atypical of meteors, but maybe just because of the color. But some consider green fireballs to be of extraterrestrial origin. Of course they are. They're not from here. All meteors are extraterrestrial. Along with meteors, bolids, other scientific explanations include sequelae of atomic weapons tests, introducing. Yeah, that's not what this is. We have two the new comet they're saying is an interstellar object possibly. So we've got two ultra rare visitors from very far away in the universe or from outside of our solar system have come in within 6 months of one another. That's cause for concern. As a matter of fact, if we look at the check this out. This is NASA's own stuff. We'll do recent past. Anything less than 1 lunar distance. So a lunar distance is from here to the moon. And I want miles per hour. Update. Every single one of these in the last 60 days, we have had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 near-Earth objects that are closer to, that are inside the orbit of the moon. They came in between Earth and moon, maybe not physically between us, but like between that distance, between the distance of the Earth to the moon. We've had 5 objects in the last 60 days come that close, and not one single headline about it. This goes back the past year. This year we've had, are you kidding me? Guys, I didn't even know it was this bad. Yeah, we only have 1,000 for all time. And over 100, over 10% of them just in the past 12 months. That is frightening. The point of this little side trek is that what happened in Hawaii was part of a bigger cosmic event that is happening to Earth in its entirety right now. And we are really going to need to take care of one another, because this is going to be happening to more people in the months to come. We are going to be seeing a lot more suffering. And that's all being delivered by these objects. As I said before, these were the gods. That's why they were considered bloodthirsty. And now, when you look at it, okay, so like, Ku, that's not him. He was the Hawaiian deity of war. And notice he's always depicted with a figure 8 mouth, which depicts my bow tie theory pretty nicely, in that impacts make a bow tie shape on the surface of Earth. And the reason his mouth is shaped that way is because where the impact goes, that's like where he's taken a bite out of Earth, and even out of the people that live right there. And I think that people have been folded right under into Earth, not in this impact, thank God, but horrible things did happen to them. I think that's where the idea of underworld is is proposed, people that just got folded under the earth, literally, by these impacts. And I think that they are the god of war, because they spark up conflict because someone thinks, because they're like a trickster god, and they can do something without, they can, like, I don't know, I'm just going to use a crazy example, like build some kind of diversion of the river, and then like the people downstream will think the people upstream did it, when really it was like an impact that did it. And also, like, and by changing the land and by submerging lands, that could certainly cause conflicts, territorial conflicts between neighboring states. His face kind of looks like what we're looking at in terms of the destruction. And there's a lot of details about him that also hold up to my thesis. Also known as Akua, he was the god of war, politics, farming, and fishing. Farming, I think, because these impacts also bring valuable, like, nitrogen and other necessary elements and minerals to the earth that nourish the land in the long term. And these processes of destruction become processes of renewal and transition, and therefore they're gods that are evil and malevolent, and also giving and kind. That's why they had this extreme duality, because it's you got to be cruel to be kind kind of thing. The god, they recognized that this god was killing people. It was a bloodthirsty god who killed people in their sleep sometimes. And these people died horrible deaths. But they also delivered many, like fresh water. And here's a clip from my video about the Turkey and Syrian earthquakes back in February of 2023, in which I asked the question, was the Green Comet's close approach of around then responsible for these events? Now, I adjusted the light, I adjusted the footage a little bit, and I did a bit of a close-up here of these power lines. But there are all sorts of electrical anomalies that happen before and immediately before and during the earthquake. And so that's my point, is that this didn't come from underground. This came from the sky.
Interestingly, and they get brighter and brighter, brighter and brighter and brighter. And then this lights up again. And then it explodes. And you see all the gas from inside it.
You can't see it in this now because it's overexposed.
So it exploded.
But look at the power lines.
And then these now explode. It's because of the amount of energy being focused on that spot right now.
Human brain is an efficiency machine. It loves shortcuts. And because of that, humans have a tendency to keep doing what they think works, and never to take a step back to look at the bigger picture to see if there may be a more truer truth that could lead to better outcomes. And so we need to understand this about the brain so that we can fight against that tendency of ours to just do what's always been done, and to remain in paradigms without ever taking a step back and looking and saying, hey, is this really right? I'm just slowing down and taking a closer look and fighting that tendency to just keep believing what we've always believed because it seems true. That's kind of my message to the world, is we need to always do that. That's one of my messages to the world, is that we need to understand that about ourselves and make sure that we can always take a step back and question our beliefs and make sure that we are not falling into false belief. Because even science is a belief system. There's a lot of theory, a lot of belief. So don't let them fool you. Science isn't all scientific. Science is actually the birth child of religion, and it tries to pretend like it has no connection to its mother at all. But really, it's just like the opposite side of the same coin. No offense to all you scientists, but this is the truth that I'm speaking. I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. All I'm asking you to do is to step into this paradigm that I am suggesting. Play along with me in this thought experiment and just see where it takes you. Humanity's fear of comets throughout history was not foolish and was not unfounded. They knew that comets caused problems on Earth. The fact that we discount it now, I can't tell if it's if we're purposely being misled, or if this is like willful ignorance. But now we have two long-term comets from very far away making close approaches to Earth. And there are probably several other comets flying through the solar system now, leaving junk in their wake. So, but these two green comets, that's why I looked up the green meteors, because I figured green meteors would probably come from green comets. So, another thing interesting, I read a paper a few weeks ago that says that comets are surrounded by a hydrogen envelope. And so not only is the comet coming in, it's the hydrogen envelope surrounding it that's coming in. And that's going to, once it hits the lower level of the atmosphere where we are, that's where all the oxygen is. It stays down close to Earth. And so when that hydrogen envelope hits the oxygen in the lower atmosphere, it creates water as a byproduct of the impact. And so that's why these things are associated with storms. I plan to do a full analysis of everything that's happened on Earth since January, because there are several reports of exploding houses that are being blamed on natural gas and gas leaks and things, but there have been so many of them this year. I haven't had a chance to find out yet if this is an anomaly, but we've already seen that the amount of near Earth objects just in the past 12 months has been excessive. So, don't let them blame this on climate change. The things that we are experiencing, yes, we are going to be experiencing a lot of natural disasters. So in Maui, it's not just the only wildfires. Don't forget, we had severe, excessive wildfires in Canada as well. And there was, I remember, video footage and a conspiracy theory that evolved from that footage because so many of them sparked at the exact same time. Well, that's because they were all little pieces of this thing that were all coming down. Now, they don't have to still be in a solid form. They can be gaseous. Just because they vaporize in the upper atmosphere doesn't mean they're not still barreling towards the surface of the planet at, Mach 1,000. And so what I'm saying to everyone is to please have your disaster plan in order. Please be prepared for anything to happen. Be prepared for significant storms. Be prepared for earthquakes, even in places where they're not usually associated. Be prepared and keep an eye on the skies. Keep an eye out for the disaster color palette. That's that. It's like a burnt, like an oxide, iron oxide color, or a sickly kind of green color. Watch out, and also the black carbon mist. Keep an eye on the skies for those things, because those those are forewarnings. Those are, as it's coming through the upper atmosphere where we can't see. This is how the sunlight, I can't explain it perfectly. I'm sorry. It works in my head, but, I'm still working out a lot of the details about this theory, but everything is even, I did a Florida condo. I did a thing about the Florida condo collapse, and there have been several other building collapses. We're talking about landslides, floods, tsunamis. These things do all of these things. They cause all of these problems on Earth. And I have no evidence that they bring illness, but because the ancients believed that they did, they were probably right. These probably do bring microbes here. Some of them surely can make us sick. But what we really need to be prepared for is natural disasters, because those happen very quickly and they catch people off guard. And, if you live in an affected area where something happens, please be a support to your neighbors. Please check on them. Please help the people around you if you can. I'm not trying to scare the crap out of everyone. I feel like this is a really important message to deliver at this moment. So please introduce yourself to your neighbors if you don't know them. Build a network of support right in your backyard, because these things can wipe out. Look at Hawaii. Their communications were shut down for how long? Over a week, I think. No one was prepared for that. So this is your warning to prepare for anything right now. Be safe, be well, and may the gods be kind to you. One more thing. This video took me over 50 hours to make, and that's not even counting all the research. That's just in production. So in order for me to be able to continue to do this, I really need the channel to take off quickly. So if you think that my message has any value whatsoever to society, or if you think that it might, please direct people to my channel. Please talk about my video. Please share it with people. Share it on your Facebook feed. I normally wouldn't ask anyone to do this, but I've gone back to work as a mortgage originator, which is going to take up a good 50, 60 hours of my week. And I'm fine with that, but I feel like this is much more important work for me to do. So I would not have been able to make this video if I had already started to write loans. I'm still building my social media presence right now, and I should be working on that. I shouldn't have been spending 50 hours making this video over the last week and a half. But so that's I'm not trying to beg or anything, but I really feel like this should be my priority, because I think that it is a very important and timely message. So if you stand with me on that, can you help me out? Can you help me get to, 1,000 subscribers so I can monetize and make this my living? Otherwise, I'm going to have to put it on the back burner and do it part time, which means it would take me months to put together something this informative. Yeah, that's it. I can't be a starving artist for very much longer. I need to make a move that makes money, and I really feel like this is where I need to be. So thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. And I will have another video out for you as soon as I can.